Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, AI-generated bug reports, reproducible LLM eval layers, and a less wrong essay on the statistical parrot. Let's begin. According to the Financial Times, corporate hacking reward schemes are being strained by what the story calls never-ending AI slop. The article frames automated, low-quality submissions as a continuing burden on programs set up to reward real-world vulnerability discovery. Reporters describe the inflow of AI-produced reports as a persistent source of pressure on those reward processes, complicating how organizations manage and prioritize genuine security findings. A blog post on Towards Data Science argues that most LLM evaluation systems rely on vague scoring and human judgment. The author describes a lightweight evaluation layer written in pure Python that separates attribution, specificity, and relevance. By turning model outputs into reproducible decisions across those dimensions, the post says the layer catches hallucinations earlier and makes the decision of what ships into production more reproducible and accountable. A personal essay on Less Wrong reflects on the risk of mistaking statistical pattern matching for genuine understanding in large language models. The author uses first-person examples and a conversational tone to show how model outputs can read as confused or shallow while still following statistical patterns. The piece mixes anecdote and reflection to warn readers against treating fluent pattern generation as the same as true comprehension. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable returns through courses and practical frameworks. Today's 3 pieces all point to quality and evaluation as the shared challenge. Reporting and commentary emphasize that rising automated noise and unclear evaluation practices make it harder to separate genuine understanding from pattern matching. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, AI subscription risks, Trump-Massey clash, quitting fandom essay, White House prayer revival, and Scott on high modernism. Let's begin. A commentary hosted at thisstateofbrand.com argues that subscription models for artificial intelligence create financial and operational hazards for enterprise customers. The piece is circulating on Hacker News, where the thread shows 58 points and 35 comments. Readers there are engaging with the argument and linking back to the original post. Both the article and the discussion thread are cited on screen for reference. The Financial Times published a profile of the campaign fight between Trump and Massey in Kentucky. The story's headline names Epstein, Iran, and what it calls AI slop as contested themes in the race. The reporting traces how those topics have become part of the campaign rhetoric and local debate. The Financial Times article is the on-screen source for this report. A personal essay, cross-posted to Less Wrong, recounts the author's deconversion and the change in life goals that followed. The writer explains a shift from aspiring to astrophysics toward a focus on preventing death, and adds a forward disclaimer that views held immediately after the change are not necessarily current. The post frames that personal evolution and explains why the author is sharing the story now. According to the Wall Street Journal, the White House put prayer at the center of Washington by hosting a national event on the National Mall described as a revival. The piece focuses on the administration's role in organizing the gathering and on how faith was foregrounded in that public space. The Wall Street Journal is the cited source for the full account. A less wrong post reflects on James C. Scott's Seeing Like a State and the hazards of high modernist planning. The author contrasts local, embodied knowledge, METIs, with large-scale schemes and cites Soviet collectivization in the early 1930s as an example of what can go wrong. The essay also notes the Green Revolution and the role of modern agriculture in feeding the world's roughly 8 billion people. This hour is brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable outcomes through courses and frameworks at Adwaizer.com. Today's stories show debate and reassessment across institutions and communities. Public conversation, personal reflection, and political ritual are all shaping how technology and values are being discussed now. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, Zelensky defends strikes, ministry drafts AI policy. Let's begin. The paper attributes that comment directly to Mr. Zelensky and characterizes the strikes as deadly. That is the full scope of the report, as presented by the Financial Times. According to Capital newspaper, a Ministry of Education has partnered with UNESCO to draft a national artificial intelligence policy. The report says the ministry and UNESCO are working together specifically to prepare a national AI policy document, as described in the Capital newspaper coverage. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable outcomes with courses and frameworks at Adwaizer.com. Today's stories show national authorities shaping both military choices and technology policy. Governments are both defending actions in public and partnering with international bodies to write rules for new technology. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, Siri privacy revamp, economic futures essay, lighthouse attention speed up, and energy crunch analysis. Let's begin. Apple is planning a redesign of Siri that places privacy at the center, according to TechCrunch. The report says privacy will be a major theme when Apple unveils the new version. Coverage on TechCrunch frames the update around that emphasis. We cite TechCrunch, May 17th. Anthropic published a post on its site titled Economic Futures, dated May 16th. The piece appears on Anthropic.com under that title. We cite Anthropic, May 16th. News Research has published a method called lighthouse attention. It is a selection-based, hierarchical attention mechanism that wraps around standard scaled dot product attention during pre-training and is removed afterwards. Lighthouse pools queries, keys, and values symmetrically across a multi-resolution pyramid and runs stock flash attention on a small dense subsequence. That design reduces the attention call from an N by S by D cost to an S squared by D cost during the pre-training phase. The write-up is on Towards Data Science, May 16th. The Financial Times ran a piece titled The Looming Energy Crunch, dated May 17th. The article appears under that headline on FT.com. We cite the Financial Times, May 17th. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer turns AI strategy into measurable returns for executives and founders. Today's stories link product design, economic arguments, and resource limits. Companies and researchers face trade-offs between privacy choices, model efficiency, and energy constraints. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, Siri auto-delete chats, AI water debate. Let's begin. Apple is testing a more chatbot-like Siri that gives people explicit choices about how long their conversations are kept. Reporting draws on a Bloomberg report and says the feature is slated to arrive with iOS 27. Users will be able to select a retention setting that deletes chats after 30 days, keeps them for 1 year, or retains them indefinitely. The change is framed as part of an effort to lean on Apple's privacy record as a differentiation in the AI era. The report says Apple hopes that clearer retention options will reassure users even as the company lags some rivals on raw AI capability. That framing is contrasted with other major players, which the report describes as generally offering only temporary, incognito-style chats rather than multi-tier retention choices. In short, the plan is to trade some convenience for clearer privacy control, letting people decide whether they want short-lived conversations or to save exchanges long-term. The coverage links the retention choices directly to how Apple wants to position Siri in the marketplace. More conversational, but with visible privacy controls that the company hopes will matter to users. A recent blog post argued that the so-called AI water problem is not a real technical issue, and that critique drew attention on Hacker News. The thread links the blog essay and gathered 52 points and 31 comments at the time of filing. The discussion centers on whether the concern is substantive or mistaken, with participants weighing the blog's claims and testing its reasoning. The exchange is an example of community scrutiny, pushing back on a popular framing in AI commentary. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams skip the hype and ship AI that pays for itself. Both items show how framing matters. Product teams use privacy controls to shape adoption, and the community uses critique to test whether a problem really exists. That combination keeps companies attentive to user trust and to the arguments that influence engineering priorities. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, Europe AI sovereignty. Let's begin. Business Insider reports Mistral's chief executive warned that Europe has 2 years to avoid becoming dependent on United States AI. The story is being discussed on Hacker News, where the thread shows 59 points and 57 comments. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable returns with courses and practical frameworks at Adwaizer.com. Today's story centers on European AI sovereignty and the risk of dependence on United States technology. The conversation is active in both mainstream reporting and technical forums. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, University of Arizona boos. Let's begin. At the University of Arizona commencement on Friday, former Google CEO Eric Schmidt met with repeated boos when he turned his remarks to artificial intelligence. The reaction reflected broader unease among students about jobs and the economy. According to The Verge, his frustration was also evident during the address. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executives and founders turn AI strategy into tangible plans with courses and frameworks at Adwaizer.com. The moment highlights that artificial intelligence is a live political and economic fault line on campus and beyond. Graduates and public figures navigate that tension as they discuss technology's role in jobs and society. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, transport industry coverage, systems safety primer, pandas for data, and an essay on AI. Let's begin. TechCrunch Mobility is back as a central hub for news and insights about the future of transportation. The column frames ongoing reporting for the sector and collects reporting and commentary aimed at readers tracking changes across automotive, mobility services, and related technology. As a dedicated channel on transport, the Dispatch offers readers a steady place to check for developments, context, and analysis about how the field is evolving. A writer on Less Wrong recommends Nancy Leveson's Engineering a Safer World as a systems-oriented primer on safety engineering. The piece directs readers to an online copy available from MIT and highlights the book's approach to safety science, software safety, and systems thinking. The author urges readers to focus on the opening chapters and describes the work as an approachable example of applying cybernetic perspectives to real-world safety problems. A post on Towards Data Science argues that Pandas remains the preferred tool for general-purpose data wrangling. The author notes that Pandas is highly reliable for most datasets, while very large workloads, billions of rows, are an exception to that rule. For everyday cleaning, reshaping, and analysis, the piece recommends sticking with established Pandas workflows. An essay appears on Daring Fireball with a linked Hacker News discussion. The page and its discussion thread are cited in the item's metadata, and the Hacker News thread shows 51 points and 6 comments attached to the post. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable returns with courses and practical frameworks at Adwaizer.com. Today's items cluster around practical foundations: a dedicated transport coverage hub, a systems-focused safety book recommendation, a case for established data tooling, and a short public essay with discussion. The coverage and commentary are grounded in practice, engineering, and attainable resources for practitioners. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. Military retooling, renewables face tax expiry, Anthropic posts job listings, Chinese two-wheeler EVs. Let's begin. The Financial Times reports the declaration raises the international alarm level and frames the situation as a matter of global concern. The piece looks at the forces and choices that are altering industry structure and strategic priorities. Calm. The report frames the expiration as creating uncertainty for projects that depend on those incentives. Calm. The company's site shows the new openings. Calm. The story describes manufacturers expanding their sales footprint into Europe. Adwaizer.com, the strategy partner for leaders deploying AI. Courses, frameworks, and ROI calculators are available at adwaizer.com. Today's headlines center on institutions adapting to sudden shocks and longer-term shifts. That adaptation shapes how public health, defense, and energy sectors allocate attention and resources. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. Nuclear fire, Chinese ship seizure, BlackRock and SpaceX, Pakistan digital push, and Trump Jr. VC moves. Let's begin. According to the Wall Street Journal, a drone strike sparked a fire near a United Arab Emirates nuclear plant. The journal published the account on May 17. The WSJ item is being treated as a breaking development by international outlets. We are watching for any additional reporting or official statements that confirm details in the journal's account. For now, the journal is the primary source for this report. The Wall Street Journal reported that Iran seized a Chinese security ship. The report frames the seizure as showing limits to Tehran's favors for partners. The journal published this piece on May 16. The story is being covered as a diplomatic development that highlights constraints in bilateral security relations, according to the WSJ's account. We note the journal as the primary source on this report and remain ready to relay confirmed follow-ups. According to the information, BlackRock weighed a multi-billion-dollar investment in a potential SpaceX initial public offering. The information published the piece on May 16. The outlet's coverage focuses on the size of the contemplated stake and BlackRock's deliberations, as reported by the information. We cite the information as the primary source for this item, and will note any further confirmations from the firms involved as they appear in reporting. According to Pakistan Today, the Prime Minister discussed 5G and artificial intelligence policy as part of a national digital revolution push. Calm. The outlet frames the remarks as part of a broader government initiative on digital infrastructure and policy, according to the report. We are listing Pakistan Today as the primary source for this account, and will relay any official releases or fuller texts of the speech as they become available. Venture firm highlighted political connections in a recent investment push. The Financial Times published the item on May 17. The FT's coverage focuses on the firm's approach to fundraising and its political positioning, as described in the article. We name the Financial Times as the primary source for this report, and will note any responses the firm provides to the coverage. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer turns AI strategy into measurable returns for executives and founders. Today's headlines underscore geopolitical friction alongside major financial and national technology moves. That puts geopolitical risk and regulatory priorities at the center of decisions for organizations operating across borders. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, ownership of AI, self-hosted agent platform, the next token debate, AI and process speed, and a SHAP explainability guide. Let's begin. Calm. The story appears on the site today under that headline. AI. The write-up notes that running agents in a local script is straightforward, but running them reliably in production across teams, across restarts, and with isolated environments per context is a different problem. The platform is described as a Kubernetes-based, self-hosted infrastructure layer for isolated agent sandboxes and persistent session management. A less wrong post argues the phrase next token prediction mischaracterizes what large language models do. The author objects to the framing and walks through what next token prediction refers to in base training, including how text is split into short sequences called tokens, and why that description alone is incomplete. A blog post titled "I don't think AI will make your processes go faster" was posted and surfaced on Hacker News. The 8chan thread shows 54 points and 33 comments at the time of aggregation. Planet AI published a practical tutorial implementing SHAP workflows. The guide starts with training tree-based models, compares different SHAP explainers, tree, exact, permutation, and kernel methods, and examines how accuracy, runtime, and drift monitoring change across model-aware and model-agnostic approaches. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executives and founders turn AI strategy into measurable outcomes with courses and practical frameworks at Adwaizer.com. Today's items converge on operational questions: control and ownership, how to run agents in production, and how to explain model behavior. Teams deploying AI face trade-offs between who hosts and controls systems, how they isolate sessions, and how they make models interpretable. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, fuzzy benchmark sampling, capital divides in AI, bug bounty overload in firms, probing model internals, and a reproducible eval layer. Let's begin. On benchmarking, the piece argues that common benchmarks undersample fuzzy, hard-to-evaluate tasks, and so can overstate capability on long-horizon work. The proposal is to collect those fuzzy tasks from actual software engineering activity, snapshot a repository and a proto-spec before work starts. Then, after the engineer finishes, use an AI transform to produce an executable spec and conditions for an LLM judge. Because the engineer already did the work, the post hoc judges or a direct agent grade are much cheaper than grading a task from scratch. The post frames this as a practical route to increase judge capacity for hard-to-score tasks. On industry inequality, the profile sketches how the current AI boom feels uneven. The reporting links those vibes to capital advantages that tilt which teams and firms emerge as winners and which lag behind. The piece frames the distribution of funding and resources as a central force shaping outcomes in the boom. On operational strain, according to Financial Times, a surge of low-quality, AI-generated outputs is creating pressure on corporate hacking and reward schemes. The story describes a steady stream of noisy submissions that make it harder for firms to run effective bounty programs and to distinguish genuine findings from AI churn. On interpretability, the write-up follows a new method called neural language autoencoders, which map a model's residual activations into natural language and back. That round-trip validation gives a faithful verbalization of activations. 5.7b at a particular layer. The author tried the technique to extract how QN performs multiplication and reports what they learned from that experiment, using the NLA workflow to inspect and explain internal computation. On evaluation tooling, a contributor argues that most LLM eval systems hide human judgment behind vague metrics and built a lightweight evaluation layer in pure Python. The layer separates attribution, specificity, and relevance, so outputs are turned into reproducible decisions. The write-up says this approach makes it easier to catch hallucinations before outputs reach production, and to make release decisions less dependent on fuzzy scoring. This hour is brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable outcomes with courses and frameworks at Adwaizer.com. Today's items point to evaluation and operational friction as a central constraint. Benchmark collection, release gating, and reward programs are all facing higher cost and vagueness in how outputs are judged, and that friction is shaping practical decisions now. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, Cassidy primary defeat, Anthropic societal impacts hub, AI subscription risk discussion, Bain closes Asia fund, and an EU steel imports warning. Let's begin. The Wall Street Journal reports Senator Bill Cassidy, described in coverage as a Trump nemesis, was defeated in a Republican primary. Com with a May 17th byline. Anthropic published a resource titled Societal Impacts Research. The post is hosted on Anthropic's site and is dated May 16th on Anthropic.com. An analysis linked on Hacker News argues that every AI subscription can become a ticking time bomb for enterprise. The item and its discussion thread are listed on news.acombinator.com. The thread metadata shows 58 points and 35 comments. The Financial Times reports Bain Capital has closed its largest Asia fund after raising $10.5 billion. The report is published on ft.com with a May 17th date. According to the Financial Times, an EU plan to slash steel imports could hurt Ukraine, officials warn. The story is on ft.com and carries a May 17th byline. This hour is brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable returns. Find courses and frameworks at Adwaizer.com. Today's items link politics, capital, and AI attention. An electoral defeat, new AI societal research, debate over subscription risk, and large fund and trade moves. Executives and policymakers face overlapping pressure from political shifts, major capital deployment, and growing scrutiny of AI's societal effects. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, India market reset, Samsung labor standoff, drive-through AI spread, open model bonanza, data center dual IPO. Let's begin. According to Bloomberg, India missed an early wave of artificial intelligence adoption and argues that the country's recent run as a market favorite may be coming to an end. The piece links that missed opportunity to shifting investor sentiment and frames AI adoption as a material factor in how markets are now viewing India's economic prospects. According to Reuters, South Korean officials say they will pursue all available options to avoid a strike at Samsung. The statement presents the government as actively working to prevent labor action at one of the country's largest technology employers, with the goal of avoiding a disruption that would affect production and supply chains. The Verge traces how AI chatbots at fast food drive-thrus moved from experiment to wider deployment. The report notes McDonald's early 2021 tests after its 2019 acquisition of Apprent, starting with a small rollout at 10 locations in Chicago. The story follows that early work and surveys how drive-through voice ordering and related in-store automation are spreading across the industry. A community roundup describes an eventful month for open artifacts, with multiple flagship model releases. The note collects recent open model activity and presents the period as a burst of development and releases within the open ecosystem. According to the Financial Times, a Chinese data center spin-off is planning dual initial public offerings in Singapore and the United States. The piece describes the move as a cross-border listing plan by a company separating its data center assets ahead of public markets. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable outcomes through courses and consulting at Adwaizer.com. Today's stories underline that AI and capital flows are reshaping markets, labor relations, product rollouts, and open-source development. That combination is changing how companies, investors, and communities allocate attention and resources now. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, AI job losses, ELK brute force analysis, OpenAI voice acquisition, UNESCO National AI Policy, and Anthropic Transparency Hub. Let's begin. Bloomberg reports the United States is beginning to see heavy job losses in roles exposed to artificial intelligence. The piece frames these cuts as an early wave of workforce reductions tied to AI exposure. Com, published May 16. A post on Less Wrong examines the eliciting latent knowledge problem and asks whether brute force approaches can reveal knowledge a model keeps hidden. The author sketches a setup where a model is trained to predict futures from cameras and sensors, and planning algorithms then search for action sequences that lead to predicted good outcomes. The post points out that some action sequences could tamper with cameras, so the footage looks fine even when reality is bad. In that case, the model knows facts, such as that the camera was tampered with, which are not visible on camera but would change our evaluation if we learned them. The write-up asks how to train a predictor so it reports that kind of latent, off-screen knowledge rather than just the visible signals. According to the information, OpenAI has acquired an AI voice startup called Weights. Com with a May 16 date and frames the deal as an addition to OpenAI's voice work. Capital Newspaper reports the Ministry of Education has partnered with UNESCO to draft a national artificial intelligence policy. Com. Anthropic has published a transparency hub outlining model, behavior, and research disclosures. Com on May 16, presenting it as a central place for model behavior information and disclosures. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable returns for executives and founders. Taken together, these stories highlight labor displacement and questions about what models know and how organizations disclose that knowledge. Industry deals, policy drafting, and new transparency efforts are active alongside debates about extracting latent model knowledge. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, Anthropic agentic coding, Versal Zero language, Chinese video generation lead, arXiv AI enforcement, Lighthouse attention speed up. Let's begin. Anthropic published a post introducing Claude Code. The company describes Claude Code as an agentic coding system. The announcement is hosted on Anthropic.com. Next, Versal Labs released Zero, an experimental systems programming language designed so AI agents can read, repair, and ship native programs. The language emits JSON diagnostics with stable codes and includes typed repair metadata. Zero enforces capability-based input-output at compile time and compiles to native binaries under 10 kibytes. Versal's post describing the language appears on planet.ai. Next, according to Financial Times, Chinese AI groups have pulled ahead of U.S. rivals in the race to build video generation technology. The story appears on FT.com and frames the development as a competitive lead in video generation research and engineering. Next, arXiv is doing more to crack down on careless use of large language models in scientific papers. The update signals stepped-up enforcement around how authors use and disclose LLM assistance in submissions. Next, News Research published Lighthouse Attention, a training-only selection-based hierarchical attention that wraps around standard scaled dot product attention during pre-training and is removed afterward. Unlike prior methods that pool only keys and values, Lighthouse pools queries, keys, and values symmetrically across a multi-resolution pyramid. That change reduces the attention call from O of n times s times d to O of s squared times d, and lets standard flash attention run on a small dense subsequence. The paper reports tests on a 530 million parameter Llama 3 style model during pre-training. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams skip the hype and ship AI that delivers measurable value. Agent-friendly tooling and compact, repairable outputs are the through line across these reports. Research and policy emphasize training efficiency and careful, auditable use of large language models. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, tailored finance access, arXiv AI bans, Google spam update, EY study retraction, OpenAI product shuffle. Let's begin. Bloomberg reports OpenAI and Plaid are partnering to bring tailored financial guidance to the masses. An arXiv moderator described a new policy that penalizes low-quality, AI-generated submissions with a year-long ban, according to the moderator's account. Google updated its search spam rules to treat attempts to manipulate generative AI results as spam, saying such tactics try to deceive users or manipulate search systems. According to the Financial Times, EY retracted a study after researchers discovered AI hallucinations in its analysis. The Verge reports OpenAI announced another reorganization, consolidating products and naming company president Greg Brockman to lead product as the company focuses on AI agents. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable returns with courses and consulting at Adwaizer.com. Today's items show two forces at work. Platforms are embedding AI into core products and services, and gatekeepers are tightening quality and policy controls. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. Job losses tied to AI, and Microsoft research notes on delegation reliability. Let's begin. Chaucenbiz reports SpaceX is targeting a July 12 listing on the NASDAQ after its merger with xAI. The outlet says the company is aiming for a record capital haul in connection with the listing. The report frames the plan as tied to the recent merger and describes the timing and the scale as notable in markets. Chaucenbiz published the item on May 15. The information reports OpenAI has reorganized its product teams around a unified app strategy. The coverage says the company is shifting team structures to align work with a single app approach. The article frames the move as an internal reorganization of product groups to match a new strategic focus. The information published its reporting on May 15. TechCrunch reports the Musk v. Altman trial came to a close this week. Final arguments, the outlet says, repeatedly returned to a central question about whether the people in charge of AI can be trusted. TechCrunch places that legal drama alongside other industry moves, noting it plays out as SpaceX advances toward a large NASDAQ offering and as a new generation of founders spins out from incumbent firms. The TechCrunch piece is dated May 15. Bloomberg reports the United States is beginning to see heavy job losses in roles exposed to AI. The story documents early labor market moves tied to automation and characterizes the losses as notable where tasks are exposed to AI systems. Bloomberg frames the reporting as a developing picture of employment disruption and published the article on May 15. The Post says the authors appreciate the discussion the paper generated and clarifies what the work does and does not claim. Microsoft research emphasizes that the aim of the work is to develop robust evaluation methods for long-horizon delegated tasks and to improve understanding of reliability in delegated workflows. The clarification appeared on May 15. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams skip the hype and build AI strategy that connects to measurable business outcomes at Adwaizer.com. Today's items show institutions, companies, courts, and research labs grappling with AI's operational and social effects. Leadership choices, market moves, workforce impact, and questions of delegated reliability are front and center for leaders and researchers. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, settlement approval delay, personal deepfake alerts, trial credibility clash, and chat GPT personal finance. Let's begin. Lawyers involved in a major settlement dispute say the agreement was pushed through too quickly so that a large share in fees could be taken. Reporting, says critics, accuse participants of rushing a historic settlement in order to capture $320 million in fees. The allegation centers on how the deal was handled and on who would benefit from the proposed fee split, according to the coverage. YouTube is widening its likeness detection program to users aged 18, and so more people can ask the platform to look for potential deepfakes. The feature uses a selfie-style scan of a person's face to search YouTube for lookalikes. If the system finds a match, YouTube sends an alert to the user and offers an option to request removal of the content. The company tested the feature first with creators and later with government officials, politicians, and journalists, and it says the number of removal requests so far is very small. In the final week of the trial between Elon Musk and Sam Altman, lawyers traded sharp attacks over each man's credibility. Altman faced questioning about an alleged history of lying and of self-dealing tied to companies that do business with OpenAI. He pushed back in court, portraying Musk as a power seeker who sought control over how development proceeded. The courtroom exchanges focused on trust and on competing portraits of motive and character. OpenAI is rolling out new personal finance features inside ChatGPT for Pro subscribers. The initial release is aimed at users in the United States and is offered to ChatGPT Pro members first. Reporting frames the rollout as a product expansion for paying subscribers. arXiv is tightening rules on papers that include unverified output from large language models. The platform says that if there is incontrovertible evidence, authors did not check LLM-generated results. Examples given include hallucinated references or model-inserted meta-comments. Those authors can be banned for a year. Future submissions that rely on such material will need acceptance at a reputable peer-reviewed venue, a change described by Thomas Dieterich, the computer science section chair. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams skip the hype and build practical AI strategy with courses, frameworks, and ROI calculators at Adwaizer.com. Today's stories converge on accountability and trust, legal and courtroom scrutiny around deals and leaders, platform tools to protect likeness, research gates against unchecked AI output, and new paid consumer features. Institutions and platforms are enforcing standards and making choices about access and oversight. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, ChatGPT bank access, product leadership shakeup, AI in manufacturing, mechanistic estimation methods, and workplace AI gaming. Let's begin. OpenAI announced a preview that will let users securely connect their bank accounts to ChatGPT through Plaid. Plaid links to about 12,000 financial institutions, including Schwab, Fidelity, Chase, and Capital One. OpenAI says more than 200 million people already consult ChatGPT for finance questions, from budgeting to cutting spending. The preview promises a fuller picture of a user's finances once accounts are linked. The announcement frames this as a secure connection, and it appears aimed at expanding ChatGPT's role in personal finance. OpenAI has rearranged its executive ranks and placed Greg Brockman in control of product. The company is unifying Chat, GPT, and Codex into a single core product experience. The reorganization is presented as an effort to bring related developer and chat features under one product strategy. The move is described as part of an ongoing effort to simplify how OpenAI ships and positions its customer-facing offerings. Manufacturing output. The story notes that these gains come alongside looming supply shortages tied to war. The piece frames AI as a measurable factor in recent factory activity, while also flagging risks from global supply constraints that are affecting production lines. Researchers posted an interim technical update describing mechanistic estimation methods for expectations of random products. The authors present relatively general methods that compete with sampling. They apply the approach to several estimation problems, including random half-space intersections, random 3SAT, and random permanence. The post is deliberately light on broader motivation and aims to give a high-level introduction before more detailed notes. A report summarized on Hacker News links to coverage saying Amazon workers are under pressure to increase their use of AI and are, in some cases, inventing tasks to meet usage expectations. The reporting says employees are inflating metrics tied to AI tooling. The story highlights how workplace incentives around model adoption can reshape day-to-day behavior on the job. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams turn AI strategy into measurable returns with courses and practical frameworks. Today's stories show AI landing deeper in everyday systems, personal finance, product leadership, factory floors, research methods, and workplace metrics. Teams integrating models into live systems face trust and governance pressure, while researchers refine ways to measure model expectations. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. This hour, ChatGPT personal finance, Anthropic fundraising surge, Google spam policy for AI, California digital democracy, and companies overwhelmed by agents. Let's begin. OpenAI is launching personal finance tools inside ChatGPT. The rollout is aimed first at ChatGPT Pro subscribers in the United States. The company presents these features as part of ChatGPT's expanding set of productivity and consumer services. The Wall Street Journal reports Anthropic is raising $30 billion. The piece frames that raise as part of a wider pattern in which AI labs are absorbing the majority of venture capital funding for the sector. Google updated its search spam policy to include efforts to manipulate generative AI responses. The policy says spam covers techniques used to deceive users or manipulate search systems, and it calls out attempts to influence AI responses in AI overview or AI mode in search. The update notes examples such as biased, best of, listicles, and recommendation poisoning aimed at swaying model outputs. California has launched a digital democracy initiative to invite residents to help shape AI policy. The initiative opens a public channel for civic input on how state AI rules and programs should be designed. The Wall Street Journal reports businesses are confronting a new problem from AI: too many agents. Companies are struggling with operational sprawl after deploying large numbers of autonomous or semi-autonomous AI agents across teams and workflows. This hour brought to you by Adwaizer.com. Adwaizer helps executive teams convert AI strategy into repeatable value with courses and practical frameworks at Adwaizer.com. Today's items show AI shifting from research into everyday systems, where funding, policy, and operations meet production needs. Organizations that deploy these systems face funding decisions, governance questions, and operational strain today. Top of the hour from Adwaizer. China AI talks, Runway's video pivot, AI-driven crypto threats, chip stocks reaction, and research paper citation issues. Let's begin. According to Bloomberg, Trump said he discussed AI guardrails and NVIDIA's chips with Chinese leader Xi. The comments are reported by Bloomberg on May 15th. Bloomberg frames the exchange around those two topics, and the outlet attributes the account to its reporting. According to TechCrunch, Runway, known for tools for filmmakers, is shifting its focus toward wider ambitions in AI. The piece says the company is betting that video generation is a path to so-called world models. TechCrunch also notes Runway views being an outsider to large AI firms as an advantage in that effort. According to Bloomberg, AI-enabled hacking is posing a major threat to the crypto industry. The story